I'm joined now by polling expert Elliott Morris. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So you have a new poll that just came out that signals some bad news for Donald Trump right off the bat. And we're going to get into some other polling numbers as it relates to the party more broadly. But first and foremost, can you explain what the polling results showed as far as Trump is concerned?
Yeah, so our poll with Verify, we fielded it in July, just before this big Epstein files controversy unfolded. So, that's some useful context for people. We found 57% of U.S. adults say they disapprove of the job that Donald Trump's doing as president. 42% approve, and that's mostly unchanged since the last survey that we had strengthened numbers and Verify did in June. On the issues, Trump's underwater on pretty much everything. So we asked people, do you approve of Trump overall? We also asked them, do you approve of Donald Trump on his handling of blank? And you could say immigration or deportations. We also ask about the economy and inflation. Trump's underwater on all of this, on everything except for border security, where he has a slight 4-point advantage. Again, for context, he was at plus 10 in the last survey, so he is losing some meaningful ground on immigration and deportations.
So what is his weakest issue right now?
Right now, Trump's weakest on prices and inflation. There, 33% of adults say they approve of the job he's doing as president, and 61% disapprove. So he's almost
Wow.
at minus 30 there. That's one of the worst numbers I've seen for a president. That is about what Joe Biden had before the Democrats lost the 2024 election.
So that's what Joe Biden had when his polling was so bad that he himself dropped out and his Democratic predecessor had so little chance of winning that Trump was able to sweep every single swing state in the country. And yet those polling numbers are the same between Trump and the Democrats previously.
Yeah, I mean, it indicates to me that inflation is just something that voters don't like, regardless of who the president is. Now, Trump's certainly not helped himself
Yeah.
with his tariffs increasing prices for the average American, especially on things that they buy, like at the store, like food and toys. And his new bill, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which is also very unpopular, will also have the effect of decreasing the amount of money that Americans have to spend, which will make it seem like prices are going up for them. So I imagine that this issue is going to get worse for him as his presidency goes on.
Now, you mentioned that this poll was taken before the Epstein stuff really came into the zeitgeist like it is right now. I understand that there's no Epstein stuff here. Is there other polling that suggests how Trump is faring or whether he's losing support as the result of the fallout with Epstein?
Yeah, so we did an analysis on Friday, so last Friday. We found that Trump's underwater on the Epstein issue by 42 points. So I just told you he's underwater by 30 on inflation. He's underwater by 40 on the Epstein files. Americans say they want transparency. They want all the files released. About 80% of Americans say that. And if you ask them, do you approve of the job that Trump is doing on this? 80% say no, and 17% say yes. So
Jeez.
it's early for that to affect his overall top line approval numbers, but we are seeing those numbers decrease slightly. So last week he was at a 54% disapproval rating. Now he's closer to 55. So that might seem small to the audience, but in American politics, most people don't change their mind. So
Right.
around a 1 or 2% change actually is pretty significant.
And so at what point does his negative polling on a certain issue start to impact, I guess, his overall, you can hold two things at once. You can say, I disapprove of how he's handling Epstein, but I still approve of Trump. And so when does the Epstein number, as low as it is, start to chip away at the broader number?
Well, that's sort of a matter of interpretation. I mean, the trend is definitely not good for Trump. So, Mike Johnson today said he's going to shut down the House because Democrats are trying to force a vote on the Epstein files, and the Republicans would rather not have that vote. I imagine, just to make the point, that that's a signal to the Republican base that there isn't going to be movement on this issue, despite what they want from Trump. So far, the Republicans, about half of them have been saying they disapprove of the way that Trump's handling Epstein, but still 90% of them say they approve of the job Trump is doing as president. I imagine as this issue goes on and they continue to not get what they want, that they might, if this is an important issue for them, start
Yeah.
turning against the president overall. But it's kind of a matter of degrees, right? We don't think that there's enough Republicans out there for whom the Epstein issue is the most important thing for them. So I wouldn't expect, just to put some numbers on it, that Trump's approval rating would go to 20% or something. It's probably
Right.
going to stay around 40.
Okay. You had mentioned Mike Johnson and the House Republicans. You've also covered the popularity of the House Democrats and House Republicans in a generic poll. Can you explain what those results showed?
Sure. So one of the questions we're really interested in fielding every month at the Strength in Numbers Verisight poll is asking Americans, who would you vote for in your local congressional district, your House of Representatives seat, if that election were held today? So we have enough polls now that we can look at the trend, and we're like reasonably confident that Democrats have a pretty solid advantage on this question. So this month, 47% of Americans say they would vote for the Democrats in their House district if the election were held today, and 43% say they would vote for Republicans. So that's a 4-point advantage for the Democrats. Just to give you some context, in 2018, that's the big Democratic wave year, Democrats were at +6 at this point in the cycle. So they're a little bit behind where they were last time when they ended up with one of the largest House majorities in recent memory, but there's still time for them to make their case and to increase that number.
Okay, so that was your poll. There was another poll that we just got the results from, and that's Atlas Intel. They were the most accurate 2024 pollster. They showed in that same poll Democrats leading Republicans 51-43 on a generic ballot. So that is 8 points. How do you look at, I guess, Atlas Intel's results here as part of this broader ecosystem? And if we are looking at an 8-point overperformance, and an 8-point lead for Democrats over Republicans, how does that factor into the analysis?
Yeah, I would say the best thing for your audience to do is to average all these polls together. So we're at +4 now. Last month we were at +8. Atlas Intel, which did a lot of their field work over the past couple of weeks, they're at +8. Just like average those numbers together. There is noise in polling, right? We say it's not perfect. So the best thing to do is take all of them together. If you do that, then Democrats are up 6. And that is like I said, that's a pretty strong position. That's where they were at this point in the 2018 cycle, but
Right.
there's still not a whole lot of polling, and there's time for that to change. So
Of
as we
course.
get more data, the signal might become clearer. That number might move a little bit, but we're talking about a matter of a couple of percentage points. 4 points difference between our poll and the Atlas Intel poll is still enough to be explained by like random measurement error, random sampling in the survey itself. So I wouldn't take those differences to mean too much. The signal here is that Democrats are doing really well.
Right. I mean, if we're looking at an average 6-point lead for Democrats over Republicans, and that's what we saw in 2018, Democrats were able to flip 41 seats in the House. It was the biggest Democratic victory margin in modern American history. And so if, look, this is all a snapshot in time. It's not a predictor of what's going to happen in the future, but given this snapshot in time, it obviously bodes well for Democrats as we head toward 2026. There was also an interesting finding in your poll about Elon Musk. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So I guess we're a couple of weeks late to this, but to the extent that I think people will still resonate with this, we asked people. We split our poll in half. We asked half of them, about 750 people, would you support a generic third-party independent candidate next year? We asked them this because Elon Musk has recently said he's going to launch his America Party candidates in local congressional districts to try to punish Republicans who voted for the one big beautiful budget bill, the one big unpopular bill, as I termed it. And so we compared that support to Elon Musk's support on the same question. So half people got, do you support generic candidate? Half people got, do you support Elon Musk's America Party candidate? The differences here are pretty striking. So about 18% of Americans will tell you that they are very likely to support a generic independent third party candidate, someone who's not a Republican or a Democrat. But if you specify the America Party, that support falls 60% to 7 percentage points, 7% of Americans. That's still a lot, but I would consider this to be an upper bound, right? Think about the mindset people are in right now. They're really unhappy. They just got a really unpopular bill. They're really unhappy with Democrats. Even Democrats are. So people will probably tell you that they're likely to vote for a third party, even if they're not that likely to do so.
Yeah, I mean, if I remember correctly, wasn't the Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz threatening a third-party run a few years back? And in mid-cycle, it seemed like the numbers were enough that they would be, this cataclysmic impact on the election. And then when it actually, as you got closer and closer to the election, the numbers went from like 10% to 8% to 4% to 2% to like negligible, basically.
Yeah, and RFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., right now he's Secretary of Health and Human Services. He ran his third
Right.
party bid in 2024, starting at around 15, 20, percent support in some of these polls. He dropped out of the race when he hit 2%. So the trend is usually downward when people figure
Yeah.
out who these third party candidates are. They decide, oh, that person's actually farther away from the party I usually vote for. This is a known quantity. I'm not going to vote for this risky third party bid who's unlikely to win a seat anyway.
And finally, let's end with this. Are there any issues that you think are not being adequately exploited by Democrats that are ripe for exploitation that have a big impact on the overall polling of either Trump or Republicans?
Well, in our poll, we asked Americans what they saw in the news over the last month so we could see like what they're paying attention to. A pretty big issue was judicial and constitutional issues in general. This was right after the LA protests. So
Yeah.
some people are saying like they don't, want the president to be able to send Marines into a state or into a city. And other people are saying like recent Supreme Court decisions are troubling to them by taking power away from Congress and the judiciary and giving it back to the executive. So that is an issue that resonates mainly with people like who know about it, people who are elites, people who are watching the news.
Yeah.
That's one issue. I would say for the rest of people who aren't super tuned into the news, it's the economy. It's always the economy. And right now, Trump has a -30 approval rating on the economy, so that's probably the thing you want to hit the most.
Okay. Elliott, how can folks who are watching right now see and hear more from you?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Brian. People can go to gelliotmorris.com to my Substack, Strength in Numbers.
Great. And we'll put that link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Very important, as I always say, to support independent media, independent journalists. Elliott, appreciate all your time and the knowledge that you bring to us.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.